She had just buried her husband when she discovered the life insurance meant to protect her daughter's future was already claimed by someone pretending to be her. What began as a widow's pursuit for justice soon unraveled secrets her husband took to the grave, and a betrayal that nearly destroyed her again. You're watching Storytelling and Beyond, where true emotions meet unforgettable twists. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for more gripping and heart-touching stories every week. The sky was still weeping when Evelyn Carter returned from the cemetery, the echoes of shovels biting into damp earth still fresh in her ears. Her husband Thomas had died in a tragic car accident just 10 days ago. Everyone said it was fate. That the slippery cliff road was known to claim lives during spring storms. But fate didn't explain the restlessness in her chest. Or the cold weight of her husband's final days, filled with long silences and unfinished sentences. In their modest two-bedroom home on the edge of Maplewood, Evelyn moved like a ghost. Their daughter Lila, only 9, sat curled on the sofa watching cartoons with the volume turned down low, trying to pretend her world hadn't just collapsed. Evelyn walked into the small office room Thomas used to keep tidy and opened the drawer labeled life insurance. He had always been oddly specific about it. "It's all there," he used to say. "If anything happens to me, it'll keep you and Lila safe." She ran her fingers over the envelope and pulled out the documents. A $500,000 policy. Valid. Active. She gathered the necessary paperwork and made the call. "Thank you for calling Western Alliance Life," a calm female voice answered. "How may I assist you?" "Yes," Evelyn said, voice shaking. "I'm calling to initiate a claim. My husband, Thomas Carter, passed away recently. I have the documents ready." "Just one moment, ma'am." There was a pause. Keyboard clicks. Then a strange silence. "I'm sorry," the voice returned. "But according to our system, the claim for Mr. Carter's policy has already been processed. It shows the funds were disbursed to the listed beneficiary." Evelyn blinked, her pulse spiking. "What? That can't be right. I haven't submitted anything yet. I'm the beneficiary." The line held tension like a stretched wire. "According to our file," the agent continued carefully, "the beneficiary was listed as Evelyn Carter. The payout was collected last Thursday. In person. A signed receipt was scanned and uploaded." Evelyn's mouth went dry. "Last Thursday. I was at the cemetery with my daughter. There must be a mistake." "Ma'am, I understand your concern. But from what I see, the identity matched, and the check was processed and issued on site." The voice offered to email her the scanned documents. When Evelyn opened them minutes later, she stared at the digital file in horror. The name on the payout form was hers, Evelyn Carter. The signature was hauntingly similar to her own, but not exact. A practiced imitation. She dropped the phone. "Mom?" Lila peeked into the room, eyes wide. Evelyn turned, her mind spinning. Who had signed her name? Who even knew about the policy in such detail? She slowly turned her gaze to the wedding photo of Thomas on the desk, smiling, arms wrapped tightly around her. There was once safety in that smile. But now, all she saw was a stranger. Someone was impersonating her. And somehow, they'd stolen the very future Thomas promised her barely a week after his death. And deep inside, a chilling question echoed in her mind. Did Thomas help them do it? Evelyn couldn't sleep that night. The ceiling fan whirred steadily above her, but her thoughts spun faster. Who had forged her signature? Who had access to such precise details about Thomas's insurance policy? And most of all, why? At dawn, she packed Lila's lunch and dropped her at school early. The little girl clung to her hand longer than usual, sensing the shift in her mother's energy. Evelyn kissed her forehead and promised, "Mommy will fix everything." Even though she didn't know how yet. By 9 a.m., she stood stiffly in the corporate office of Western Alliance Life, downtown. The polished glass walls and leather furnishings screamed efficiency, but Evelyn had no patience for appearances. A young receptionist led her to the claims manager's office, a tidy man with a tired smile and a plaque that read, Greg Hollister, Senior Claims Officer. "I appreciate you coming in, Mrs. Carter," Greg said, shaking her hand as she sat down across from him. "This situation has raised some flags on our end too." Evelyn leaned forward. "That payout, it wasn't me. I never signed anything. I never received a check. Someone is impersonating me, and your system allowed it." Greg nodded cautiously and turned to his computer. "Let's take a look together." He pulled up a PDF of the signed document on a large monitor beside his desk. Evelyn's heart raced as the image loaded. There it was, her name, Evelyn Carter, neatly printed under the words claimant's signature. And a signature that mimicked hers perfectly, but not completely. The loops were tighter. The tail of the Y curled differently. A forgery, but a skilled one. Greg glanced at her. "Do you deny this is your signature?" "It's not mine," she said firmly. "Then someone forged it," he murmured, his tone shifting. "The file shows the funds were picked up from our Uptown branch, 2 IDs were verified. One was a driver's license. The other a utility bill in your name." "I don't live near Uptown," Evelyn said. "And I never submitted any bill." Greg typed again, then hesitated. "There's something odd," he said slowly. "The ID used was under the name Layla Carter. It was listed as an alternate legal name linked to the beneficiary profile." "Layla?" Evelyn blinked. "I'm Evelyn. I've never used the name Layla in my life." Greg leaned back in his chair. "Sometimes people change names, or have aliases. Could this have been a legal name change? Perhaps you used to be Layla?" "No. Never." Evelyn's fingers curled into fists. "But my husband, he once mentioned a half-sister. A woman he cut off contact with years ago. Her name was Layla Morgan. Wait, Thomas changed his name from Morgan to Carter after we got married." Greg's eyes sharpened. If someone accessed his documents before the policy was finalized, they could have inserted an alternate name, posing as you. And if they had my old address or ID details, they could forge the supporting documents, Evelyn whispered. Greg frowned. "This might be a case of internal fraud, Mrs. Carter. Someone had to input that alternate name into the system. That doesn't just happen by accident." The walls seemed to close in around her. Not only had someone stolen her identity, they'd likely done it with help from inside. "Can you pull up the account logs?" she asked quietly. "Who last accessed or edited the beneficiary info before the claim?" Greg paused, uncertain. "I could lose my job for this," he said under his breath. Evelyn met his gaze, her voice trembling with desperation. "My husband is dead. My daughter has nothing. And someone is walking around with the money he left for us. Please. Just show me." Greg looked around nervously, then clicked deeper into the system. After a few seconds, he exhaled sharply. The edits were made 3 days before his accident, by a staff user named R. Vickers. Uptown branch. Evelyn repeated the name to herself. Vickers. She'd never heard of him. But it was a start. A thread. She rose from the chair slowly, her heartbeat like thunder. "Thank you, Greg," she said, already moving toward the door. As she stepped into the elevator, she didn't feel like a grieving widow anymore. She felt like a woman at war. And this time, she wouldn't let anyone rewrite her name or her future. Evelyn spent the next 2 days consumed by one name, Layla Morgan. Her husband's mysterious half-sister. A woman Thomas had only mentioned once in passing, during a tense evening years ago. He had called her trouble, someone who had manipulated their father, stolen from the family, and disappeared. Evelyn hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now it seemed that shadow from Thomas's past had crept back into her life and stolen everything he left behind. With Greg Hollister's help, discreet, but clearly shaken by what he'd uncovered, Evelyn managed to trace a mailing address tied to the forged utility bill. It belonged to a rundown duplex in a forgotten corner of the city, on the edge of an industrial zone where buildings sagged under the weight of time. Evelyn drove there alone. No makeup. No fear. Only fire in her eyes. The woman who opened the door was a mirror warped by time. She shared some of Thomas's features, the same piercing hazel eyes, the high cheekbones. But her smile was practiced, worn like a mask. "You must be the widow," she said, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. Her voice was low and casual, but laced with something bitter. Evelyn didn't waste words. "I know who you are. And I know what you did." Layla tilted her head. "You'll have to be more specific." "You forged my name. You stole the insurance payout. That money was for me. For our daughter." Layla let out a soft, mocking laugh. "Your daughter. Right. And what about the family he left behind long before you ever showed up?" Evelyn's fists clenched at her sides. "He hadn't spoken to you in over a decade. You were cut out for a reason." Layla stepped back and let the screen door shut between them. "Thomas owed me. You think I just walked away when he changed his name and started over with you? He promised me he'd make things right. That policy? That was part of the deal." Evelyn blinked. "Deal? What are you talking about?" Layla's eyes narrowed. "Your perfect husband had secrets, sweetheart. When he was younger, he got me tangled in his mess, money problems, a bad crowd. I covered for him. Paid off debts. Took the fall once. I lost everything. And when he cleaned up and found you, he left me in the gutter." Evelyn's chest tightened. "And you think that gives you the right to rob his widow?" Layla shrugged. "He called me a week before the crash. Said he felt guilty. Said if anything happened, I should take the money. Said he didn't deserve it anymore." Evelyn staggered back a step. "You're lying." "He sounded broken," Layla continued, her voice lower now. "He didn't say it directly, but I think he knew what he was going to do. You ever wonder if that accident wasn't an accident?" Evelyn felt the blood drain from her face. "No," she whispered. Layla leaned forward, her voice cold. "He died trying to fix what he ruined. And now you're here acting like a saint while collecting the pieces." "No," Evelyn repeated, louder this time. "He would never abandon us. He loved Lila. He loved me." "Maybe," Layla said. "But guilt has its own gravity. It pulls people down. Even the ones we think are strongest." Evelyn stared at her, heart pounding in her ears. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the truth. And the truth was that Thomas Carter had been drowning long before that cliff ever took him. She turned and walked away without another word, the rusted gate squeaking shut behind her. Her husband had been living with a past he'd never dared to confess. And now, his silence had left her to battle ghosts alone. Evelyn sat quietly in the courthouse hallway, hands folded over a copy of the forged insurance form. A year ago, she had been a grieving widow, barely able to hold herself together for her daughter. Now she sat upright, dressed in navy blue, a storm of resolve behind her calm eyes. The courtroom proceedings had taken weeks. Investigators confirmed everything Evelyn had uncovered, from the forged signature and fake utility bill to the internal tampering of the beneficiary details by a former employee named Ralph Vickers, who had since been fired and arrested for document manipulation. He had worked closely with Layla Morgan, his former girlfriend, and confessed to helping her forge Evelyn's identity in exchange for a share of the payout. The most damning evidence, though, was a voicemail Evelyn found buried in an old cloud backup tied to Thomas's old phone. She had almost deleted it. The audio file was dated just 2 days before his accident. But something stopped her. And when she pressed play, everything changed. "I'm sorry, Evie," Thomas's voice cracked through the static. "I wanted to fix things, but I made a mess. I left Layla behind when I got clean. I never paid her back. She threatened to expose everything. I thought if I gave her the policy, maybe she'd leave you and Lila alone. I'm so tired, Evie. So tired. If I don't make it back, tell Lila I love her. Tell her I'm sorry." The courtroom had fallen completely silent when Evelyn played the recording aloud. It didn't excuse what Layla did, but it shattered the illusion that Thomas had been merely a victim of tragedy. He had carried guilt like an anchor around his neck. And in the end, that weight may have pulled him off that cliff more than the rain or road ever did. Now, standing before the judge, Evelyn watched as Layla was sentenced for identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy. No dramatic breakdown. No final insults. Layla simply lowered her head as the gavel fell. Evelyn didn't cheer. She didn't cry. Justice wasn't loud. Sometimes it was just quiet peace, like the sigh of a woman finally able to breathe again. The insurance company, eager to avoid scandal, had not only returned the full $500,000 to Evelyn, but offered an additional settlement for emotional distress and mishandling of personal data. But Evelyn didn't use it to upgrade her house or vanish into luxury. Instead, she launched the Carter Foundation, in her late husband's name, a nonprofit that supported families recovering from financial betrayal, suicide-related trauma, and hidden debts left by loved ones. It was her way of giving purpose to pain. A way to show Lila that they could still turn sorrow into strength. One bright spring morning, Evelyn sat beside Lila on the porch, watching her color butterflies in a sketchbook. The little girl looked up. "Mom? Do you think Daddy sees us?" Evelyn smiled gently. "Yes, baby. I think he sees everything now." She took a deep breath, feeling no more anger. Only clarity. The past had lied, broken, and deceived, but the future still held room for truth, and for healing. You've been watching Storytelling and Beyond, where every twist has a heart, and every heart tells a story. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell icon for more unforgettable, emotional stories that move you and stay with you.